Hey guys, Rick Stone here from Our Stony Acres. Welcome to our YouTube channel. Today we're going to do something a little bit different than what we normally do. We just hit 100,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel and we are excited about that and we're celebrating all week long. And so today, instead of doing a normal where I teach you something, I've actually asked for viewers to submit questions and we're going to do a Q&A. So we're going to do that probably for about the last 10 to 15 minutes of this video. I've got about 5 minutes of celebration related things to talk to you about. So if you want to just skip right to the Q&A, there's a chapter mark down so that you can do that. But I'd love to have you stick around and hear about our celebration. So Saturday morning at 4 a.m. we rolled over 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. And yes, I did stay up. Well, I didn't stay up. I woke up to watch it happen. And my wife was not very happy with me when I turned the computer on at 4 a.m. in the morning. But we both got up and celebrated a little bit. And so I'm super excited to hit this point. It's humbling to me to be here and to know that 100,000 people have come to see my garden advice. And so thank you guys for being a part of that. And I really appreciate it. So to celebrate, we're doing all kinds of fun things. So we've got a giveaway that we're doing. So we've got 100 packages of seeds that we're going to give away to 100 lucky subscribers, one package each. These are lettuce seeds that are coming from Honest Seed Company. They partnered with us and kind of customized some seed packages for us. So super excited about that. If you would like to enter that, you have to live in the United States or Canada in order to be eligible. And you need to get signed up for the list before midnight tonight, which is June 14th. So before midnight, June 14th, you need to register. So you can either click on the link down in the description or you can click on this link right up here to sign up for that contest. Also, we are going to be doing a workshop, a special workshop for you guys this Friday, June 17th at 2 p.m. Mountain Time. We're going to be talking about strategies to deal with the heat in your garden. So I've got 4 tips for you. We're going to go about 20 minutes worth of kind of lesson, and then I'll do 20 minutes of Q&A afterwards. And we also have prizes for this event as well. So Smart Pots has given us 2 Smart Pots to give away. And Honest Seed Company has given us 3 $25 gift certificates that we're going to give away as part of this workshop on Friday. So if you want to enter for those prizes, you need to pre-register for the workshop. Now, the workshop will be here on YouTube. It's live. It's free. Anybody can show up. But if you want to actually be eligible for the prizes, then you need to pre-register for the workshop before the morning of. So, early on Friday morning, I'm going to cut off the pre-registration and we'll kind of do the drawing then. And we'll announce the winners at the workshop. So there's a link here or here that you can click on to go sign up for that workshop as well. So those are kind of some of the fun things that we're doing this week to celebrate hitting 100,000 subscribers. So thank you guys. One of the things my wife wanted to do is over the weekend, she's like, well, we should do 100 things in the garden. And so we actually came up with a couple of things that we could do 100 of. So let me just kind of run the B-reel here. We picked 100 weeds. It was time for us to thin our apple tree, and so we thinned 100 apples off our apple tree, and then we put 100 bags, actually ended up being 200 bags over the apples to keep the pests away. We also planted 100 seedlings inside in our seed starting setup. This is mostly lettuce that we planted and a little bit of kale and some collards, but mostly lettuce. So we got those and they're actually already up and growing. You can see from this cutaway. And then the other thing that we did is we planted a celebration garden. So we've got this little spot back here along this back wall that we usually plant midsummer to greens. And so we did that a couple of weeks early just to celebrate so that we can kind of have a little garden spot that reminds us of this day as well. So we planted kale and lettuce and collards and Swiss chard, and we made sure that there were 100 of those plants planted as well. So all of those went in. So those are the kind of the fun things that we did. It's also the first time that you see my wife on any of these videos. She decided that it would be okay if she was in those. So, all right, so let's move on to the Q&A because that's why we're here today, is to get some questions answered. So I had readers submit questions to me over the past couple of days, and I went through and selected 12 that we are going to answer today. And I'm going to try and keep this to about 15 minutes so that you guys aren't here for forever. So let's kind of run through and go through these. So Rita asked a couple of questions about shade and shade related issues. So she's got a couple of pecan trees in her backyard that really cover most of her backyard in shade, and she's wanting to know, what can she plant in those areas. And Rita, I'm going to refer you, I just did a video last week on that, so there's a link right up there that you can click on that. But just, kind of to answer your question, things that are going to grow well there are going to be things like lettuce, collards, kale, Swiss chard. The leafy greens are what are going to do the best there. If it has a root or a fruit, it needs about 6 hours of sunlight, and it sounds like to me that area isn't going to get 6 hours of sunlight. So you're going to be wanting to focus on the greens. Those are the things that are probably going to do the best in that area. And then you also said that you've got an area that only gets sun from about 3 p.m. to sundown. What can you plant there? You might get, in the summertime, you might be getting about 6 hours of sunlight there, but it's kind of a funky time of day, and so I'm not sure it really counts. And so again, I would be looking at more of the shade tolerant vegetables there, so the leafy greens. But in that area, you could probably branch out a little bit and look at things like peas and beans, maybe some onions, a few things like that might do well in that area as well. Okay, our next question comes from Gail, and Gail says she's got some little black bugs that are eating holes in her eggplant leaves and also in her potatoes, and she wants to know how she can get rid of those organically. So Gail, the first thing that I would recommend is try and figure out what they are. That always helps. So if you can do some kind of plant identification, I don't know where you live, but hopefully you've got an extension agency that might be able to help you identify those. That would be the first and foremost. Then the first thing that I would probably go with is like an insecticidal soap. So if they're a small bug, hopefully they're also soft-bodied, and an insecticidal soap would probably do a pretty good job with those. You're going to have to be pretty aggressive in treating them at first, but if you stick after it for a week or two, you may be able to trim those down. The other thing that I would recommend for you would be diatomaceous earth. You can sprinkle some diatomaceous earth around those plants and on those plants, and that should help to thin down that population as well. So those would be the recommendations that I would give you there. Neem oil might also be something that you could use on those that again would be organic. Okay, next is Sally, and Sally is having some problems with her radishes and getting her radishes to bulb, and that can be frustrating. Radishes, she's wondering, what she needs to do. Her soil is nice and rich and everything, and so she's wondering why she's not getting radishes to bulb. She's only getting top growth. Radishes are fairly easy to grow, but they can be picky depending on what time of year you plant them. So they are 100% a cool season crop. Anytime the temperatures reach 80 degrees or above, they are going to want to bolt. And so bolting means they're going to try and put up a seed head, which means they stop focusing on the root growth and they only focus on the top growth, okay? That could be your problem. It may be timing. So plant earlier in the spring and later in the fall. Stay away from those 80-degree temperatures. Anything over 80 degrees is going to be a problem for radishes, okay? The next thing that I would look at is fertilizer. Radishes don't like a lot of nitrogen, okay? So if you are getting lots of top growth and no roots, then there may be too much nitrogen in your soil. And so maybe your soil is a little too rich and you need to try planting your radishes in an area of your garden that isn't quite as rich in soil. Because again, if the plant is focusing on top growth, then it doesn't do anything with those roots. So those would be the two suggestions that I would look at for you. All right, Justin's question is a tough one. Justin lives in an area that has a lot of heat and a lot of humidity, and he's wondering what he can do to help his plants protect them from the heat, and also to keep the fungal infections and problems that he's having down. And Justin, this is a tough one, especially when we're talking organically, to deal with those issues, those fungal issues and things like that. And really, for the heat, shade cloth is going to become your friend. So you'll want to get some shade cloth that you can put over your plants, especially when the temperatures get above about 85 degrees. Things like peppers and tomatoes and eggplant don't like to set fruit in those temperatures, and so some shade cloth is going to help there. With the fungal diseases and the humidity, air circulation is going to be the key. And so you're going to want to grow up in your garden. You want to trellis. Maybe your tomatoes shouldn't be in tomato cages. They should be on poles, or you should use like the Florida weave method so that you're getting those plants up. And then with like your squash plants and everything, the more trellising you can do, The more off the ground, the more air circulation that you can get around the plants, the better it's going to be for those fungal issues. Then the other thing that you're going to need to look at is pruning. So like your tomatoes, you're going to want to prune. As those plants will start to produce, they'll produce up the plant, and so you can prune off those lower branches once the fruit's produced on them. Prune those lower branches off. That will again increase your air circulation. Same with squash. They'll sometimes get overgrown, especially like your summer squashes will get a lot of leaf growth, and you can thin a lot of that out to keep that air circulation going, and then just get things up in the air and do your best. There are a couple of organic solutions for fungal issues, but I would need to know specifically what it is that you're looking at in order to give you recommendations. But next question comes from Montana Bean Blossom, and this is a good question because we're actually going to give you a really long answer about this in 2 weeks. So when should you plant broccoli for fall harvest if you live in a colder climate? And the answer to that is, first off, I think broccoli should always be started indoors. So I would rather start your seedlings indoors and then put them out later. That helps you to keep them in a controlled and cooler environment. They're a cool season crop, and so they're not going to do well planted out in the garden, from seed. And so I would start them indoors. And so my target date for that is 10 to 12 weeks before your first frost date in the fall. Okay, so and is what you want to do is you want to plant those indoors, and then you give them about 6 to 8 weeks indoors, and then you're planting them outdoors somewhere between 4 to 6 weeks before that last frost date. Temperatures should be starting to moderate and come down. They'll still be a little bit warm, but as long as we get those plants maturing when the cool weather is there, then that's what we're targeting. So about 10 to 12 weeks before your last frost, start those indoors, and then you'll get them out later, okay? Now, if you want to learn a lot more about that, we're actually doing a workshop on planting fall seedlings, and we're doing that 2 weeks from this Friday. So it'll be June 24th. We're doing a workshop live on YouTube so that you could follow. So watch out for that. And again, that'll be on June 24th, probably around 2 o'clock that we'll be doing that. So that should help you out a lot. Okay, Richard. And Richard's a member of the Gardening Academy, which is our membership service. If you want to learn more about that, link in the description. Richard has a compost pile that he's neglected. And so it hasn't really composted. And it's mostly just dried out. And that's probably, Richard, why it hasn't, that it's kind of just dried out. So he wants to know if there's anything that he can do to revive the pile, or if he just needs to start over. And Richard, yes, you definitely can get that pile to revive. In fact, I did that with one of mine. I just checked the temperature on it, and it was at 130 degrees yesterday, and so it's up and firing again. So here's what you need to do. Turn it first, get it aerated, and then we want to add a few things to it. We want to add a big shovelful of garden soil. That'll get some good microbes in there and get those mixed in. And then we want to add some more greens, especially things like grass clippings or food scraps, potato peels or banana peels, whatever, food scraps. Add those in. If your pile is dry, then greens will be fine. If there is some moisture to it still, then you may want to add some greens and some browns. So maybe some leaves or some shredded paper, something like that as well. But add that fresh material to it, aerate the pile, mix it all in, and then water the pile. You want the pile to be the kind of the consistency of a wrung out sponge. So give it a good squeeze, and if you're getting some moisture, then you know you've got enough moisture in there. So water the pile, mix in some fresh material, aerate it up, and it should fire up, okay? If it doesn't, do it again. Add some more material, more water, aerate it again, mix it up, and then that should get that pile fired up and going again. If that doesn't work, you can always use the materials from that pile along with fresh materials to start a new pile as well. So you could mix it into a new pile, but you definitely should be able to get that pile fired up again if you just give it a little attention. All right, next is Melody, and Melody is looking for some natural ways to deal with slugs and squash bugs. So let's talk about slugs first. There's a product called Sluggo that is organic. It's pet safe, kid safe, bird safe, and it works really well for slugs and snails. You can also use traps. So that's what you do here is you get like a pie pan and you put it and you kind of bury it in your garden so that it's at ground level. And then you're going to put some either beer or lemonade in there, and that will attract them, and then they fall in and drown. Okay, and so that's a good control. But the Sluggo is also a good solution for those. And then hand picking. Just get out there, throw them in a plastic bag and put them in a garbage can and stay after it, stay consistent. You should be able to thin that tribe down quite a bit and get rid of those. Now, squash bugs, it's a different scenario. There are a few organic treatments that will help. Insecticidal soaps will usually do a pretty decent job of, especially when they're younger. You can hand pick them. Diatomaceous earth will help. But prevention is also a big part of that. And so you should cover your squash plants with a fabric row cover at the beginning, okay? And this is a light fabric row cover. You can only do that until the plant actually starts to blossom. Once it starts to blossom, you've got to take those covers off so the bees can get in. But putting those covers on will help to keep the adult bugs away from those plants. The other thing that you need to do is you need to be constantly checking, like every other day, go out and check the leaves on your plants. Turn them over and look for those eggs, and you'll see these clusters of eggs, and you want to get rid of those. You can either pull that part of the leaf off, or you can wrap some duct tape around your hand with the sticky side out, and you can press that against those egg clusters, and that will pull them off. But prevention and control is going to help a ton in doing that. So those are my organic suggestions for those. Diane is asking, when she pulls her garlic out, here probably pretty soon, should she add some more organic material to the bed before she plants something else? And the answer to that, Diane, is yes, definitely. I don't usually put as much compost in as what I do in the fall. So usually in the fall I'll put 2 or 3 inches of compost in my beds. But when I replant mid-season like that, I'll usually try and mix about 1 inch of compost into the top couple of inches of the soil just to kind of refresh things, give it some more nutrients in that soil. So yeah, that's definitely a good idea. Butch is our next question, and his question is about ants and strawberries. So he has an ant problem in his strawberry bed. He's wondering what he can do to help get rid of those. Ants are kind of a peculiar bug. Sometimes they bother plants, depending on the variety of ant, and then other times they don't really do much, and their presence may indicate other problems like aphids. So a lot of times ants will farm aphids, and so to get rid of the ants you have to get rid of the aphids. But if you have ants that are actually eating your strawberries, then a couple of suggestions that I would have is, number one, see if you can find the nest and pour some boiling water on it. That should really reduce the colony size. The next thing that I would suggest is trying some diatomaceous earth. That is a pretty good product that is pretty good for ant control, and so you can sprinkle that on your beds. Make sure you get a food-safe variety, and you should just be able to sprinkle that on your beds. Anytime it rains, you'll have to reapply, but that should do a pretty good job of helping to control that ant problem. Lisa's question is also about strawberries, but this is about the runners on her strawberries, and she's wondering if she can use those as transplants. And the answer, Lisa, for that is yes. And you want to wait for those to root out, though. So usually what will happen is they usually will root out about every second node will root. And so let those touch the ground. They'll root and develop a root system. And once those have rooted in the ground, then you can dig those out and transplant those to other parts of your garden. And that should work really well. And then Lori, last question. Lori's a member of the Gardening Academy, so is Lisa actually as well. Lori's question is about, she has a couple of beds that she described to me that are close to some maple trees, and she's getting roots in those beds. And these were beds that were put in by the former owners of their property, so it's not something that she did. And she's wondering what she can do about those roots. And unfortunately, Lori, I don't have a lot of help for you there, other than to move the beds, not use that area. Tree roots can be a real problem, and nice raised beds are exactly what tree roots are looking for, right? Soft, lots of water, that's what they want. And so that's why you're seeing those kind of vein-like roots that are growing up into your beds. A couple of suggestions I would give to you is, if you want to move the beds and then put some landscape fabric down, that could help. It won't be 100%, but that could help to keep those roots out. And then, you could just dig them out every season before you start and as well. But unfortunately, that's a tough problem. We have a bed like that in our yard as well, and it's a tough problem to deal with. Okay, guys, that's it. That is all the questions. Let me know what you thought. I've never done a Q&A video like this before. It feels a little long, but let me know if it's something that you guys are interested in and would like me to do again in the future. We could definitely do it. I've done, we do Q&A sessions live in the Gardening Academy every month, and I've done a few others, on live scenarios, but I've never done a recorded one like this. So let me know what you think. Okay, before we go, just make sure that you guys enjoy the celebration this week. Hopefully you will enjoy all the videos we're doing, and I'm going to try and do a regular video as well as all these other workshops and stuff. Make sure that you get signed up for the seed drawing. You need to do that by the end of the day today. There's a link down in the description below for that. And also the workshop on Friday, the 17th of June. You need to sign up for that if you want to be eligible for the prizes as well. So there's links down below. Okay, if you haven't subscribed already, please make sure you do. Click that notification bell. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Everybody have a fantastic week. Thank you again for being a Stony Acres follower and helping us hit this 100,000 mark. Pretty awesome. Appreciate it. Happy gardening, guys.